Hello class, and welcome back to EDUC 1300. So far this semester, we've discussed ways to set effective goals and dreams, examined your life roles and how to make wise choices in those roles, defined ways to increase motivation, determined ways to complete purposeful actions, and we've highlighted the benefits of moving towards interdependence. By now, I'm hoping you're beginning to think of yourself as a creator in charge of your life and are actively making purposeful actions towards your goals and dreams. However, I realize that no one is perfect, and I'm sure many of you have stumbled along the way. Some of you may even feel like you've sabotaged your own success and may be thinking there is no way to recover from those bad decisions. So, for the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you how we get off track, but more importantly, discuss ways we can overcome those setbacks. After all, a study in how to be successful in college and in life would be fruitless if we did not discuss ways to get back on course when our lives have gone awry. So, let's begin. However, before we can return to a path of success, first we need to determine where we are now and how we got there. So let me ask you a few questions. In which of your life roles are you off course? Secondly, do you know how you got there? And, more importantly, do you know how to get back on course to your desired outcomes and experiences? In spite of our best efforts, sometimes we make choices that work against our goals and dreams. It seems like we take our eyes off the prize for just a minute, and some invisible force comes along and pulls us off course. Then, when we finally realize what's happened, we discover we may be miles away from where we need to be in pursuit of our goals and dreams. If you feel there are times where you've reacted unconsciously, don't feel bad. In fact, one of the most important discoveries in psychology is the existence and power of unconscious forces in our lives. Whether we realize it or not, experiences from our past linger in our unconscious minds long after our conscious minds have forgot about them. There is evidence that our brains may retain nearly every experience we have ever had. In fact, neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux suggests that a part of our brains called the amygdala stores emotionally charged but now unconscious memories. So, how can the amygdala get us off course? The amygdala examines every new experience and compares it to every past experience. When an event is similar to a distressing event from the past, the amygdala declares it a match. Then, without our conscious knowledge, the amygdala hijacks our rational thought processes and causes us to respond based on a previous experience or situation. However, the response the amygdala triggers from a past event is likely outdated and is likely not appropriate for the current situation. Therefore, we make poor decisions. In other words, it's possible for us to be influenced in our daily choices by old experiences we don't even recall. Additionally, psychologist Eric Berne suggested the amygdala helps us create scripts on how to respond when presented with a challenge. Just like the script an actor uses that tells him or her what to do or say on stage, according to Berne, the same occurs in our unconscious mind. Berne suggested that our scripts are internal forces comprised of two parts, our habit patterns and our core beliefs. Closest to the surface of our awareness resides the directions for how we think, feel, and behave. Thought patterns, or the way we think, include habitual self-talks such as, "I'm too busy," or "people different from me are a threat," or even, "the way we do things around here is the right way, so all other ways must be wrong." Emotional patterns, or the way we feel, include our habitual feelings such as anger, excitement, anxiety, sadness, and joy. Behavioral patterns, or what we do, include those habitual actions we fall back on unconsciously, which may include smoking cigarettes, criticizing others, arriving late, or never asking for help. However, deeper in our unconscious mind is the more elusive part of our scripts. Our core beliefs are often the invisible part of our scripts that contain our view of ourselves, other people, and the world. Though we're seldom aware of these unconscious judgments about ourselves or others, these core beliefs unfortunately become the lens through which we see the world and dictate what we think, feel, and do. Although actors who follow a script often succeed, the opposite is true for those of us who follow our ingrained scripts. When we respond automatically from a life script, we are sure to struggle as a human being. Therefore, we need to be aware of our scripts so we can make wise choices at each fork in the road. However, before we can make wise choices, we need to determine how we wrote our scripts. Though no one knows exactly how we wrote our life scripts as children, reasonable explanations exist. Therefore, many experts believe there are a few factors that influenced our core beliefs. For example, when you were a child, how did others respond to you? Imagine this scene. You are 2 years old, you feel lonely, hungry, and therefore begin to cry. If your mother hurriedly comes in to comfort you, you would probably feel like the world is kind, that people love me, and I am lovable. However, in the same scenario, let's say no one comes when you cried. Your script would probably be written differently, and you begin believing the world is cruel and that no one cares. Secondly, our scripts were written based on what significant adults said to us. Think about the adults in your life. Did they say the world was good or bad? What did they say about those who were different from us? More importantly, what did they say to you? Did they highlight positive qualities and tell you to be good, confident, independent, or smart? Or did they constantly tell you what not to do or be? Psychologists have a term for qualities that tell us how we are or how we should be. We call those qualities attributions. Psychologists also have a term for the qualities that tell us what we should not be. Those are called injunctions. If the significant adults in your life reinforced your beliefs with attributions, you probably begin to believe them in your own life. However, if the significant adults only highlighted all of the things you shouldn't be with injunctions, then they affected the development of your life script as well. Yet another way we developed our life scripts include watching the behaviors of the significant adults in our lives. After all, we believe that if the adult did it, then we should do it too. Therefore, if we witness significant adults demonstrating positive behaviors, we likely follow their lead. However, the opposite is also true. If we do not have positive role models in our lives, then we probably follow the negative behaviors of those played out in front of us. In regards to scripts, we each develop our own personal scripts and cultural programs. Each is comprised of core beliefs and their resulting patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. At critical choices in our life, especially when we are under stress, we unconsciously default to our own personal scripts and cultural programs for guidance. The good news about our unconscious scripts and programs is that their intention is always positive, always to maximize our pleasure and minimize our pain. But, as you may guess, there is a bad side as well. When we make unconscious choices as adults, we often get off course by applying scripts we developed in childhood against situations in our present lives. Therefore, to address our scripts, we need to be aware of our unconscious beliefs, attitudes, biases, norms, prejudices, and values. Secondly, we need to assess which mindsets help us and which mindsets hinder us in the pursuit of our goals and dreams. Finally, we need to work to strengthen our good habits and replace or eliminate those habits that hinder us. Therefore, it all begins by taking an inventory of your actions in an effort to become more self-aware. That concludes all of the information for this lesson. See you next time.